start recording.
There we go.
So this webinar will be recorded. We're not under the same guidelines as a normal public meetings, but remember your chat and everything that's put into this context will be recorded and available on the county's website and posted to YouTube, hopefully within the next couple of days. So, look for that. If you happen to miss it, you can always go, or have friends that happen to miss it, they can always go back and check it out. Just want to thank all of our guests today, Jason Fuentes and Dolores Carroll, Trish Tabanovich, and Steve Brewer from Lumen, except for Jason is my cohort. So Jason is working with me in the broadband office. We're just going to quickly go through the webinar agenda here. This is the third of our monthly series, and we cover the same things to begin the webinar, and then we'll go into more detail as far as where things are with each of the 9 or 10 projects or 8 or 9 projects that we're working on. So once again, thank you all for attending. This is a community effort, so we're always about continuous improvement. And one of the ways that we try to accomplish that is from making sure we have ample opportunities for the community to input how we're going forward with this project. We do have an additional staff member who will be joining us on future webinars. His name is Tommy Garland. Tommy will be doing site inspections, going around and just looking at the effort that's going on with either Lumen or their subcontractors. So you may see Tommy going around in his Leaf. He will always identify himself as a county employee. So we're hopeful that this additional effort from the county will help move this project forward. I guess we can talk about the broadband accessibility and affordability office. Jason, you want to move it forward, or how does that go?
Yeah, well, let's move into our little preface. So again,
okay.
We're joined by Trish Stepanovich, Dolores Carroll, and Steve Brewer from excuse me, and we're joined by my hound Bennett for this meeting from Lumen, and these webinars are designed to give updates on VATI 2021, and they provide opportunities for the residents in these project areas to ask questions. So there will not be any discussions over VATI 2022. That is a separate conversation, nor are we right now taking any comments on other service concerns. Obviously, if anybody has anything that they would like to reach out to us about, we will drop into the chat once again our email address, which is baao@albemarle.org. And then one little logistical update. The technical focus group has been scheduled. So people that expressed interest received a notification about that. We've got a good group that have already responded. And so we will be sending out the Zoom information for that one today. And we're really excited about the opportunity to gather some people together, ask some of the more technical oriented questions about this deployment, get those questions over to Lumen's engineering team, and then hear back from them about what we're doing and what we're going to see. And now back to you, Mike.
Okay, so fortunately I have a guest too, so please yeah, so please ignore the barking in the background. If at all possible. It may not be possible, but so the Board of Supervisors authorized the creation of a broadband office in May of 2021, and fortunately Jason joined that office, and we're working together. Our efforts are about accessibility and affordability. The VATI 21 program is part of that accessibility branch, so we're definitely working to make service available to the home. So that's how we're working. Just a point of clarity on the Broadband Authority and the office itself. We work hand in hand, but we are support to them. We're not part of the Broadband Authority. So I wanted to quickly do that, and I'll turn it back over to Jason. Appreciate it.
So this has been an ongoing project. Planning for this started I believe over a year ago, and we are excited that this past Monday we were able to launch Jones Mill and Old Garth project areas. The target date on our maps. So when we talk about launching, the target date, that's the date that's listed on our maps and on the tables that we've got on our website, that is the planned date for ordering service. So on that date, in whatever project area you are, we'll take a look at those, the map and those dates later in the presentation. But on that date, that's when you should be able to go to q.com and order your service. And so we were able to launch our first 2 sites. The new q.com process streamlines things considerably from the last project that we did. And it provides a lot more details regarding the experience that you're going to have ordering fiber service, and what you should expect in terms of what it's going to look like for somebody to come to your house and install service. So we are going to continue to update any launch dates as necessary. And then the other thing that's important to note, that we have email lists that we are sending out, and we have a registration process so that you can put in a little bit of information, and then we will be able to reach out to you as a member of a specific project area when it's time for you to launch. So in just a second, I'm going to show you that registration link, and I'm going to go ahead and add it into the chat later in the conversation. But again, if you want to make sure that we've got your current contact information that we can reach out to you when it's your project area's turn, please remember to fill out that link. And now we're just going to throw it to Trish for a moment to tell us more about the Jones Mill launch.
It always helps when you start when you're unmuted. So thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate that. Yes, this week we were able to start with our launch with Jones Mill and Old Garth. However, I will get into a little bit of, there's a challenge on Old Garth, and it's a system item, not so much that the work hasn't been completed. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we are excited. We do see, I didn't capture all the, how many we've gotten so far. It's still a little early, but we definitely saw that some orders have been coming in. So looking forward to, again, this is a new process. We're excited about the platform. So certainly we've changed from our last year's VATI program to show improvement in terms of your ordering process and your experience. So certainly as you go through that process, I would welcome any feedback to help our team continue to incorporate ways to improve. But this is not just brand new for this area. We launched this as a company for Q.com for our quantum fiber. So this is, we're excited about how the experience is set to be changed for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And we do have some updates today on our launches. All of our dates were, preliminary dates based on where we stood last year, looking in the October, November timeframe. Certainly since then, we've had a fantastic winter season so far, as many of you have noticed. A little bit more snow than we're used to getting, which certainly has shifted our calendar a little bit. Obviously, not that we can't work in the snow, but you do need to be able to locate your facilities and do certain things that you do have to have safe work environments as well. So those are things that we're currently going to be updating you a little bit on our schedule where we think that's currently at. And we'll talk a little bit about the process. Some of you may not have been to the prior town hall meetings. So we're going to walk through just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page about what you can expect in the pre-sale sort of period, and then when the ordering process starts, and then how does that get facilitated when the services stood up. So that's all I have for right now until we get into it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So again, when you have the opportunity, I will drop this link into the chat later. If you want to make sure that we have your current information, and that way when your project area launches, we can please go ahead and fill out our registration form. And that way, once your project area launches, you'll get an email from me letting you know, go to q.com and get signed up. In just a moment, we're going to start the Lumen portion of this presentation. Trish is going to give us some additional updates along with Dolores Carroll, and Steve Brewer might chime in. We do have a change to how we're going to handle a Q&A. So if you have a question, either towards the top or the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A button, and you can put in, you can submit questions through there, and then we will take them as they come. And if your question is going to be related to when's my project area going to launch, once we get through the Lumen presentation, we're going to go ahead and put up the table that currently shows all of the launch dates for project areas. So that way you will have the information that you need right now. And like I said before, we are going to update all of that information on our website whenever it changes. And as a reminder, this webinar and this Q&A is related to VATI 2021. And so any other questions, feel free to email us at vaao@albemarle.org. But right now I'm going to throw it back to Trish for her presentation.
All right, thank you, Jason. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I'd like to get us kicked off just to reiterate and share that VATI, there's a brief explanation about what the VATI program is in terms of how it prepares our communities to be able to build, utilize, and capitalize on telecommunications with a goal of creating a strong and competitive communities. You know, VATI is throughout the state of Virginia, and we're excited to be a part of that here in Albemarle County. And, you know, I live here in Albemarle as well, so it's in my own backyard, so I'm personally vested to making sure we're successful in our deployments. You'll hear Lumen as the company name, but you'll see our product has been traditional, what you're familiar with is CenturyLink. Our fiber product is going to be transitioning to the name of Quantum Fiber. So you'll see that throughout the entire presentation. It is a new look, a new feel, new systems that we're leveraging for this enhanced product. So it's really setting the framework for our future in providing this service. Next slide, please. So we want to share with you, as we've promised through all these town halls, that we would give an update in terms of where we're at with estimated timelines. We've shared that the Jones Mill and Old Garth Heights would be available on January 31st in terms of completions. Jones Mill Road from a systems is fine. It's great. Folks have already started ordering there. Old Garth Heights has several homes that are not currently set up correctly. We're trying to work that internally. They did run into a system error. They're trying to fix that. They've working towards committing that for today's date. That neighborhood has gone through several dates on the Q.com site. So we apologize for that, but part of that is being triggered by some new software we're using. So, but the goal is to be able to resolve that for today. Jason, what we'll do once we have that finalized and we know that it's fixed, we'll send you a communication that way. For those, I think there's about 10 properties in that neighborhood. We'll give those folks a personalized update if they're subscribed to your email so that they know that they can go in and place their orders. But the construction, everything is ready to go. It's just it's an ordering aspect that we're just trying to resolve right now.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Several of our next upcoming neighborhoods that were scheduled for the end of February look like we're shifting them about 2 to 3 weeks, given where we've had some challenges with our weather and some of the delays that we've encountered. So we're looking now more closely to the third week of March. You know, we won't know exactly until it's a little early right now, but you know, we still could encounter some rock or other aspects that may delay us. But right now, based on the timelines and the activities we have, we believe that will be towards the third week of March, on March 21st, that we'll be able to launch. We've also anticipated that's going to backlog us a little bit on Gilbert Station. We do hope to improve that April 30th date. However, we're recognizing that timeline. We wanted to just not have folks understand that we were going to deliver 3 neighborhoods within the month, and it seemed reasonable. We may be very close, but the reality is once we are, you know, we'll update that information to the office if we have an earlier date. And as well, you'll see earlier in the presentation, you have the ability to let us know you're interested in getting that service today albeit you won't be able to place the order. And if you let us know you're interested, then certainly once it opens up, it actually triggers some of the communication to start automatically. At this time, we're not updating any of the remainder of the programs or the neighborhoods that we have that are in March and throughout the remainder of the year. We've got plans already, some of our permits and other aspects that we do as part of the pre-construction are underway for several of these developments. So we're trying to make sure we get back on track to the timeline. So that's going to be the promise from us. And certainly we'll work as closely to get back to the original schedule. Okay. Next slide, please. So if you have not been to our town hall before to hear about the new Q.com site, I wanted to at least take a minute or two to share with you what you can expect from ordering to installation. We've got your ability to let us know you're interested, and you can do so at our new site called www.q.com. Currently, if you're, if you'd like to do an order or express interest, you will not be able to order until the market launch happens. Previously, we thought that we'd be able to do that 30 days prior to the market launch, and we're just not at that point for these neighborhoods. But that may be a future enhancement, but we want to be realistic about what we can do for you today, and that's going to be at the time of market launch. We're excited about this product. It does give you a fully digital online experience. You can order the entire service online without having to engage an individual. It's sort of like an Amazon-like experience where you can add the product to a cart. You can do a prepay service, a monthly bill, and it's all automated. So we're excited about the simplicity of the process. Once you do place an order, there is some pre-work that does need to happen. We do have a buried site check to establish how long of a distance from our equipment to your home that needs to be generated. Once you place that order, that buried site check, it's generated the next day and available to us. We will have, as part of that process, we engage the Miss Utility 811 service. That's them locating your facilities, or excuse me, our utilities. But I'll make mention in our FAQ, there is an obligation, especially in some of our neighborhoods that are coming up. There are some private wells and private items that maybe you have on your property that you need to be aware of, that you'll need to actually call in for those 811 tickets. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. That process normally takes several days in order from the time that it's called in to the time that it gets completed. Usually it's about 3 days, excluding the weekends. And we do bury the drop to your home generally within 10 business days from that time period. So once the drop has been done within 10 days, you can expect to have typically your installation completed and so forth. We're trying to improve upon that. It is currently it shifts to based on certain demand. If we have a high demand in a certain time period, we may be a little longer. If it's a little lighter, we may be able to do it in as short as 2 days. So it really fluctuates, but please, we're excited to get you in there, and depending on, any of the factors we encounter, we're trying to move that as quick as possible so you can enjoy the service. The installation is generally in a 2-hour appointment window. It's not a all-day appointment window. We do want to make sure you're aware that a technician would be on site for potentially somewhere between 3 to 4.5 hours from start to finish. There is automated communication in terms of what the technician activity is going to be when they're en route, they're on site, also when they've completed. And we will require access to your home during the installation. This is not the same service as just on your current copper services today. This is a brand new service, so it does require access to your home. Okay. Thanks, Jason. So our new look and feel is I wanted to give you a heads up of what that what you can expect. If you go to www.q.com, you'll see our new front page for our product. A couple of things I'd like to call out. If you are interested in checking availability, there's the check availability button up in the upper ribbon where it says check availability. We also show the price points for your options. You have up to 200 megabits per second, and you have the full gig and the different price points. Prices can change, but currently we're offering a great rate for our services. And there's times where we will have reward cards as well. So at the time when you place the order, you may be eligible for that. I want to talk, because sometimes we talked a little bit about checking availability. So there are some of you who are later in the program for your installation. So let's step to the next slide and we can talk a little bit about what you can expect. Jones Mill, I think this is going to be, some of these folks should already know, but here's ones we shared this last month. But for Jones Mill, when folks were joining or looking at that, it says, hey, we're bringing quantum fiber to your neighborhood. Unfortunately, at that time, it had the date issue that we've been still tackling, but it will let you know, hey, fiber is coming to your neighborhood. When we do our market launch, that's the message you're going to get when you do an address verification, but it will say, hey, it's available to you, or it's coming next soon. But let's go ahead and go to the next slide, which is for those that if you're interested in the future and you're not quite there, but you want to let us know. You can do so when you do that address verification, check availability, do the address verification. If you're not currently in a neighborhood that we have set for launch, you can provide us your information and it'll be in our repository so that when your market area is launched, it actually sets up a trigger for a variety of communications just to prompt you to say, hey, the fiber is now in your area, just in case you miss a town hall or you didn't catch the news, catch up with the neighbors to say, hey, guess what, fiber is finally here. There'll be some communications that will help you in your email. So if you haven't updated your email with us or you haven't gone through this process, certainly it's a good time to do so. Or let the office know. That way they'll keep you apprised of what's going on as well. So there could be an instance where you might have a new home and maybe your home doesn't yet register. So we do have a process that cares for the new construction. Sometimes for whatever reason, if that's we haven't quite got the 911 address certified yet, then you might be able to still give us information about that, and it updates the map and it'll walk you through that process. But it still lets us know that, hey, we're interested, and it may tell you at that time, we don't know that we've got fiber to your area, so it may send you back to CenturyLink.com to say, hey, we have some other products for you, but you might just be a little too early. Rest assured though, when we do launch your area, it will do a proper address verification so that we can do fiber for your particular home. Okay. So anytime you launch new products and or even just change technology, there's bound to be questions that people are wanting to know. What is it? What does this equipment look like? So we have built out on our q.com a frequently asked questions page. And I've just taken a few images from that so you get a sense of what you can find on that page. This is still for once you're a customer. If you're just looking to become a customer, this will let you know a variety of different things in our questions and answers that you can get, just to peruse around and see what the responses are. So we've got things like on installation and hardware. I've highlighted towards the right of the page. Here's some of the types of questions and answers that we have for you. What you can expect with your installation. What if I want to cancel before then? What if I use, can I use a Wi-Fi extender or mesh devices with this service? What does the modem look like? How do I get, reschedule my appointment, or what if I want to bring my own modem? So those are just examples of, answers that we've already started to populate. And by the way, the technical question or technical forum that Jason mentioned, that's in partnership to help improve and get some of those questions from our local community to see, what kind of answers are we still missing from here. So we're really excited to partner with the team to help improve, that the more technical savvy sort of folks who want to know more of the granular details, we're glad to do so. We just want to make sure we've got the right folks to answer that, because I'm here to tell you, I'm not that person. I love technology, but I want it to be pretty simple. But some of you really want to know the ins and outs, and so I want to get you those details. Some of you have asked about the modem details. I've also provided some information here as well for the slide. So if you have questions about what kind of modem we're offering with the service, our modem can change, but this is the current product that we're using. So at the time of the order, they'll be able to confirm with you which modem device you're getting. And if you're interested in having our modem, you certainly can. If you want to bring your own to the table, you can do that as well. There are, just be aware that if you're doing that, there are some trade-offs for that. Okay. So this has been a partnership that we've done for several months now. So we built a frequently asked questions section specifically for this community that's part of the VATI program. So we wanted to give you some insight where you can get some additional information, things that you might not be, might wanted to ask, but maybe didn't raise your hands for. So it's a great way to kind of peruse information on here that we've shared previously. So also, I won't go through each one of these, but I'll give you kind of a sense as to the category. So we've got general information, a little bit of information about VATI, about the company, what is 1 gig? Does it work with wireless? That kind of stuff. The next slide is a little bit about the ordering service, just a little bit more detail about that. Next one is your voice service. Some folks are like, well, how does that work with our voice? Details are in here in terms of what that looks like. And I think we have 1 or 2 slides on that one. I can't recall. And last, we have one about fiber drops. And I'm highlighted the second question because I mentioned that in the ordering process, what to expect. So we do want to make sure we've got some beautiful neighborhoods, and a lot of you have taken time to invest in your property. And you may have electric fences, you may have propane lines, you might have, a specialized drainage system in your yard. And so we want to be mindful of that. But the only way that we'll be able to do that is if you call in to Miss Utility 811 to have them marked in advance of us installing our service. So generally what I would advise, and again, you can't be too cautious when it's your investment, right? So at the time of ordering, you certainly, that kind of starts the clock to be aware that we're going to start putting in a request in for for the utilities to be marked. So it's a good time to also remind you that, hey, if you have that, it's a good time for you to do the same thing so that, we're in sync with each other. If in the event that, you don't do it right away, but you do see markings on the ground and you're like, oh man, I haven't done that yet, please do so as quickly as possible. And that way we can make sure everything's there. Or if you have to give us, mark it off in some way, letting us know just before anyone starts, that would be perfect as well. But just recognize that 811 does do an official locate for you based on your information. So, we use that to the best of our ability to be able to make sure we don't damage your property. Okay. So hopefully that will be, if you have any questions about that, please reach out. We'll certainly walk you through a little bit more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And again, when we were talking, especially about those private utilities, that is something that is important to make sure that no damage is done to those private utilities that you have on your property. Because if those quantum crews don't know that there's something there, then if it's in the path of where they need to be trenching, then they might end up damaging those. So please, if you know that you've got some private utilities on your property, just go ahead and once they're working in your neighborhood, once it's close to launch time, once you see those markings on the ground on your property, go ahead and call Miss Utility yourself and get those marked. And if they haven't been marked, and you know, you're worried that it's coming up on your install date, let us know. So that way they can take that into account. So we have some great questions coming in. I want to jump all the way back for our first question to this slide right here. And so the question is, what about Brightspeed? I thought they were the new provider. Do you want to just touch on briefly the name musical chairs that we're going to go through?
Yeah, and actually this is a great time for me to have either Dolores or Steve be able to step in and speak to Brightspeed if you guys want to take a moment to do so.
Sure. As of yet, that is not the case. Lumen has agreed to sell its ILEC assets in 20 states to a group known as Apollo Global Management. Apollo Global Management has set up a company by the name of Brightspeed that will ultimately those assets in the 20 states, including the state of Virginia, will be transferred to. Right now, we're expecting that transfer to be completed on or about August 1st. So ultimately, yes, you will see Brightspeed in the area, but will not take place on or about August 1st.
And Steve, can you elaborate? So folks who are maybe after that time period are certainly likely to ask, well, what about their time frame, their program? Do things change because of the name change? You want to highlight a little bit on that?
Sure. You know, as part of the arrangement to transfer the assets from Lumen ultimately over to Brightspeed, the VATI 2021 project and any broadband grant projects that the company is involved in, that obligation would also transfer over to Brightspeed. So no issues or concerns insofar as that transfer should ultimately be seamless.
I think the thing I'll remind people of, if you've been in the area for a long time ago when you had a cell phone, it was probably a local or regional provider. And so you had a name on your cell phone that was probably a big provider. You had a name on your bill that was a smaller regional provider. And then every once in a while, somebody would buy somebody else, and all of a sudden your bill would change, but your service was always the same. And so that's some of what we're kind of expecting here in terms of, you'll see some name changes, but the expectation is that for now, the services are going to stay as you are hearing about them right now. Now we've got a request for us to put up this map right here, which was what we promised. So we have all of the dates are there on the left, as well as the locations. One thing that we wanted to amend, and this was our fault for not thinking about it, but on that September 30th date, Box Holly, Taylor's Gap, Rosemont, we left Rosemont off of there. So any Rosemont residents, don't worry, we did intend for you guys to be included, but you know, it's kind of hard to squeeze too many names into those areas. And Trish, one thing that I wanted to see if you could just talk on when it comes to some of these launch dates. Some of these earlier launch dates have been some of those the smaller project areas. As we're talking about these larger project areas that are coming towards the end of the project, people should expect that there's going to be a lot of work done. So even if they see, right, a crew working in their neighborhood, on their street, it could still be a few weeks or months before that whole project area is ready to launch, right?
That is correct. So with our new system, so not only does it, we will, and something to note about those larger ones, they'll likely be sectioned off. So we won't wait for the entire development to be complete, but what we'll do is we'll draw a circle, if you will, in terms of saying these are the addresses that are currently ready for installation, and those dates will then, the services will align for those. And so you will see construction happen, but it will be based on those targeted first phase, phase 2, phase 3. That's currently how we're sort of thinking about that. So say, for example, the Box Holly, Taylor's Gap, and Rosemont, that September timeframe, we may find that 2 weeks prior, we might get first phase 1, phase 2 might be on the 30th. We might find phase 3 that might be, 2 weeks later, trying to organize that rather than hold everybody for, until say October 15th, right? So we'll try to have this services available as quickly as we can. Construction is only one piece of the equation. It's a handshake as well with our marketing and our digital experience team, which are, kind of revamping this entire space for us. So all that has to come together in order to make those handshakes on those market launches. So you're right that folks might see the activity, but it may take they may be gone, but it's still we're still working through the entire process to make the date official, because once that data is open, then all those addresses become open, right? So that's the goodness with that process.
And we've got a question sort of related to lessons learned. And this was part of the presentation before, but as we mentioned in prior webinars, this is the fifth, I believe this is the fifth VATI project that we've had in Albemarle County. And over each iteration, things, we learn a lot, we change a lot about how we do it each time. Between last year's VATI project and this year's VATI project, the 2020 to the VATI 2021, there have been a lot of lessons learned, both on CenturyLink's, on Lumen's side, on our side, and to address the efforts that we've made. One thing, what we're doing right now is one of the most important efforts that we've made to change for the better for these projects, is making sure that we have a regular open forum for people to ask their questions and get answers, and make sure that everybody has access to the most up-to-date information we can provide. The specific question that was asked had a lot to do with how confident we can be, and we've seen a couple of other questions similarly. How confident can we be on the accuracy of those launch dates at this point, and what lessons have been learned in past projects that are being applied to this one to make sure that those launch dates are where we're going to hit?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's fair. One of the things that unfortunately can throw some challenges that we do not have in terms of being able to see through challenges is the location and placement of facilities where we have potentially, like we did in Jones Mill, we have a certain section where we think everything's going great. We don't hit any major rock, but then there's a rock bed that happens, and it's an extensive amount. And the depth of that as well is to the point that it's not really feasible for us to sit and try to bore through. So there are challenges like that not just Lumen, but other telecommunications that are supporting VATI programs are going to have the same challenges. And so we certainly try to work with as much data we know about the local area to say, hey, what do we know about any past efforts? If we've done any copper placement or anything, we try to learn from that. But certainly in these areas, there are going to be the unknowns. So in terms of the confidence on the dates, our expectation is that internally we were holding ourselves to an aggressive schedule. However, we do know that until we get to a certain point in the project, we're not able to say we're 100% confident or even 75% confident until we get through permitting, easements, a variety of steps that have to happen so that all of that can be vetted and we're ready to, when we're closer to the construction phase, we have a better understanding. And that's why we do the monthly town hall, so we can keep you apprised as quickly as we can about what those changes look like. And that's about, I think, the best that I can offer at this time. The lessons learned have been primarily from the prior VATI program, or really around the experience the customers were having. As we've changed the platform entirely to address our new fiber product. And so that in itself is now customized for fiber solutions specifically. It does not have any copper in it. It is only fiber. Therefore, the challenges of commingling a fiber network and a copper network really are mitigated at this point. And so we do believe that's really setting us up for future success with the deployment across, not just in Virginia, but across, the new states that will be future as part of Brightspeed as well.
That's great. We've got another question that we can answer live. For those of us that are separated from the road, when and how do we need to pay for the remainder of the service? And for this question, I'm going to go ahead and queue up the appropriate page, which I believe is it this one? Here it is. So Trish, if you wanted to answer, so when and how do they need to pay for that extra distance from the street to their house?
Well, as they say sometimes, man, do I have a deal for you. So right now, as part of our quantum fiber product, there are no additional charges for the drops at this time. So we are offering that free of charge. There is certainly in the future, the opportunity the company may in fact come back to charging for the product, just like during any good specials, right? So I think that could change. And if it does change, part of our VATI program actually has specific details in terms of what you can expect from a cost perspective. So in the third question there, it says, are there extra charges to install the fiber drop? So regardless of what the company may charge for other states, other customers, if you're part of the VATI program, we have negotiated a per foot rate of $1.55. And then the only piece that we don't know at this time is if and when that comes and we do need to charge, you would have a quote provided to you saying if you're greater than 650 feet, we'll measure the extra footage and give you a quote to say, here's how much the extra footage is, here's the cost of it. It is up to you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, to say whether you are in a position that you want to go ahead and pay for that today or not. Certainly that's up to you. And then once you do make that additional payment for that footage, then it would, we'll proceed with the installation. So again, right now, we do not have any charges on this product at this time. So I think we'll probably cover this if and when during 2022, if that should change, we can have, more dialogue on that.
Excellent, thank you. We also have a question, and I will take this one from Mr. Hogan. So a future detail map is to be added so folks can look at their specific addresses. And any questions, the idea that we don't know the exact scope of work. So I can tell you, so this is the second VATI process I've been involved in, and there are two things that I think are worth visiting. One is that the contract for this work was completed a while ago. And that doesn't mean that when this contract was signed, they didn't know what the addresses were going to be, but a couple of things do shift over the time between a contract being signed, project getting started. One of the things Trish already mentioned is that a new house might appear. And so there might be an additional home that needs to get added to that list. But there are other issues that can crop up that just make it so that even that list, it might be a little bit live for a little while as the engineering process goes in to actually figure out how are each of these addresses going to be reached. As to why we don't just have a publicly available list, well, that kind of nails it. Whenever possible, both Lumen and us as the county government, we try to avoid just putting out a list of people's addresses. That's certainly an option, an approach that we could take to make sure that everybody that wants to know whether they're on the list is on the list. But we've been working to try to come up with a solution that is a little bit more discreet, doesn't just provide a big list of addresses. And so we're still working with Lumen as a partner on a solution that is going to respect people's privacy, but also ensure that people are able to get the information out there. And if a web map that is fully detailed and gives people the information they need isn't a solution that we can provide, we're working on other solutions alongside of that. So just take care of that.
Hey, Jason, I'll share. Certainly, we also want this to be more of the burden on Lumen to be able to not put that on the office to set an address, but really for us. So we're trying to still work through our Q.com so that we can pre-build some of the addresses. VATI is different than the rest of our Q.com customers, but we do have a previous situation similar to VATI where we've preloaded a map. And so we're working towards being able to do that. That's still slated for, conversations with our IT team for later this spring to bring to the Q.com site. So we mentioned that earlier in our prior town hall. So that's still an ongoing scope of work that we're trying to get detailed out so that any, prior to having to say, hey, I'm interested, if you really want to see those areas, based on your information, it would likely pop up with a screen that says, here's the areas that are coming with the VATI program. And you can drill down to your specific street and see your information. But that would still be a customized service, for you as an individual versus, the concern of public display and also us providing public information about all of our addresses and servicing areas.
Yeah, and I will. Mike just reminded me of one thing. Sometimes, we've got some questions about rocks. We've got some questions about delays. To address again the idea of us just providing a fixed list. Sometimes the federal government happens, and in this particular with this particular project, one of the things that did happen in the midst of this project is that after the grant was made to fund this project by the state. The federal government also stepped in, and what they ended up doing is they ended up giving federal monies towards some of the addresses that were originally in this grant. And so that actually was a big sort of threw some things up in the air as far as which houses were going to get addressed by this grant. So again, it is not a matter of there's not a list. It is a matter of we want to be responsible with how we distribute information regarding that list. And if people have specific questions about that federal initiative, feel free, again, email us baao@albemarle.org, and we can answer. And we can actually, because it's a federal program with a lot of public data around it, we can answer those questions even easier than we can answer some of these questions. But that is, those are sort of the sorts of things that we have to encounter in the midst of a grant process like this. Let's see. Revisiting the question of delays. Do you want to, so Mr. Zimmerman asks, I understand rock, however, rock should be expected in this community and substantial time should have been built in if projects were appropriately designed. I'd like to just, before you respond, Trish, I'd just like to point out that one of the things that we also had was a winter storm. And that was 2 significant winter storm events. I imagine your crews can work in snow, but it's a little bit harder when there's not enough power to power, people's homes. And so some delay was caused by those winter storms in addition.
That's correct. Not only do we have, things have to work in succession when it comes to power restoral, and we did have, a substantial amount of customers that Dominion and Appalachian and other power utility companies were working through. So certainly, not only do they get first right to work in the areas, they also have first, restoration, clearing of right-of-ways. Also, then after they're done, because we need to have a safe working environment, obviously with any power concerns, we have to defer to them first until they declare it safe. After that, certainly that's when we're able to start doing some of our work. We didn't stop while we had snow, just so everybody knows. We didn't stop and just admire it. We did as much as we could. There are some aspects in terms of locating utilities and so forth that were delayed. The 811 group has been working with all of its providers that do locating to try to get companies back on track and get current, because they know that delayed not just us, but everybody. So we're certainly working through those challenges, and that's sort of inherent in the industry. We're masters at great plans, but we also have to be flexible and knowing that, yes, we do plan for a certain amount of, buffer for things that are not going to go perfect. We know that, but there are those extenuating items. And also, I just ask that folks be aware. Sometimes we have to wait for other entities. Everyone is still, from a challenge in terms of service levels. Whether it's the government, and we're asking for our permits and timelines. You know, they've got staffing challenges with COVID and, you know, the things that come with that. So do we, so does everybody. So we're all doing our best to try to make sure that we can accommodate as much of, you know, the what ifs and yet still be as timely as we can.
Thank you. And I want to just linger on that comment about the utility markings. So Mr. Hogan asked again about the utility markings and whether Miss Utility will mark your private utilities. They won't. And Tommy thankfully mentioned that to us, but they will put you in contact with somebody that will. And you know, if you're wondering to yourself, what are we talking about? That, you know, utility markings. There are two things that we really need to take into account. And one of them is going to go away very soon, and the other one is still alive. And that's one, these are private contractors. And so when Dominion, the gas company, the water company, whoever wants their utilities marked, they've got a contract with a company that specifically does this. And the individuals that do it, you'll see them in their little cars. They've usually got some yellow lights on the top, and they're going to get out and they've got this stick that it's tuned to whatever it is they're trying to find, and a spray can, and they will go ahead and mark lines all over the place. And the goal and the value of what they're doing is, again, to make sure that they don't cut something when they're trying to put something in. Where things can get a little tricky is one, timing. So if everybody needs their utilities marked right now, things can get a little busy, and so things might get delayed because a marking hasn't been done. But then on that snow issue, and we had this happen here at our house, a marker might come out and they might mark the snow, and then the snow might melt, and so markings might be damaged in the time between when it was scheduled to be marked and then work starts. And it sounds silly, right? Somebody marked the snow and then it melted, but that is a real issue that you have to deal with during this season. After this season, then some of those issues kind of go away. And so we're hopeful that we're going to stay on track with these dates, and I'm going to go ahead and put those dates back on in case anybody wants to take a look at those again. But we are hopeful that by those dates, but there's obviously a willingness to work to remedy any delays as best as we can. And
Jason,
now, yeah, go for it.
You make also a good point. So that's part of the construction and getting ready for market launch. But I also want to share, when it comes time to do your berry drop, if we've had substantial rain, the ground's really wet, there's a lot of moisture that's, we have a nice heavy rainstorm. More often than not, our berry drop crews may not drop and place your drop on that day. The ground is too wet. They're going to end up destroying your yard more than likely than just making the clean cut. That usually is part of what we need when, putting that drop, 6 to 8 inches down on our ground for you. So we are mindful of the cosmetics of what, when we have to come onto your property. So we're certainly trying to make sure that, yes, there may be a delay, but usually that delay is for a valid reason, especially more for you as a consumer.
And there's another question related to Brightspeed for you guys. So the question is, if these projects will all transfer to Brightspeed on or about August 1st, assuming regulatory approval, are there any guarantees about pricing, or will we suddenly discover big changes such as a doubling of pricing after the transition?
So regarding Brightspeed, we're here representing Lumen, so I cannot speak specifically for Brightspeed. However, I can offer experiences learned from my career in the industry. As Lumen has chosen to do, most providers have tiered type pricing, and we have two tiers. One is anything up to 200, and then one is essentially the gig speed. And those prices are set regardless of where the service is provisioned, meaning if the service is provisioned in a very competitive market where there are multiple providers, you're going to see the same pricing as if the service is provisioned in a market where there are no other providers there. That's pretty typical across our industry. So that being the case, I would expect Brightspeed to follow a similar path. Again, not speaking for Brightspeed, that's just typical of what we see across the industry. And, obviously your pricing needs to be very competitive in markets where there are multiple providers. So that being the case, I would just be very, very surprised to see a significant increase that the question was mentioning.
All right, thank you guys for that. And I wanted to say again, the value of these webinars primarily comes from the questions that get asked. A lot of the content that you've seen before the question and answer period started, that came from people asking questions and us trying our best to answer them and keep them updated. These slides that you've seen, including that FAQ section, are going to be on our VATI website at the albemarle.org website. And then we also want to remind everybody that the FAQ that you see in the slides, it's also, we try to reconcile them and make sure they all match up. And it's also on that VATI 2021 website. I think we've got, we're gonna address really quick two things that came up. So somebody was asking specifically about their neighborhood, the Ragged Mountain Farm addresses, and those are in. So again, we apologize for some of these difficulties in making sure that everybody knows where they are in the inclusion on this project. And Trish, do you want to just take a minute to address again the issues of address lookup and privacy, and why it's not quite as simple as just putting a list out there?
Yeah, so in general, most telecoms do not publish our customers' information or the addresses. We can certainly work back and next time come back with a more, legal formal answer, but generally we do not publish that. It also is part of our network. It's our plant. We don't disclose our plant locations either. I know some folks have asked about where are you placing your equipment. We don't publish those sort of information. It's proprietary information for us in terms of where our services are. And Jason, I think next time I can come back with a more formal answer from the company. But that's generally the guidance that why we don't publish, our customers' addresses, as well as letting them know that that's also where our plant is as well.
Awesome, thank you. And just as I thought we were going to wrap up, some more questions are trickling in. The first one that I'm going to tackle is on the location and that measurement of the free drop. Is the free drop location inside the house determined by the homeowner, i.e. the front or the rear of the home, or is the free location to the nearest possible under roof area? And I know that you guys have tackled some of these where somebody had a very complex irrigation system on their property, and so there needed to be some routing in order to make sure that it did not disturb their irrigation. So do you want to just discuss how that process works?
Yeah, I'll certainly do my best. And again, every situation, if you feel like you've got to something that's more complex, certainly feel free to reach out to us so we can have a further dialogue with you. But generally, as part of the drop placement, they will look towards where the utilities are. Where do we need to be able to install our equipment? It's not always at the shortest distance to the roof. It may be where it's most feasible for us to actually put our lines in. So, but generally it's going to be the shortest distance in terms of being able to reach the home. So to that extent, generally it's going to be on the side of the home, sort of similar to where you've seen maybe other utilities placed. So we're looking for where you maybe have a power, maybe your current communications equipment is out that way. So generally we're going to be near that particular area. And if you have something that is specialized, certainly we will work to accommodate that. And you just need to let us know in advance. We just don't have a good mechanism to know that without you reaching out to us and letting us see if we can't coordinate those concerns.
All right, well, we are at 1 o'clock. I think I've got a little echo. And so I wanted to thank everybody again. As I mentioned in the chat, the next webinar will be March 4th, same time, same Zoom link. If you have a question that we haven't answered, if you have a question you'd like to discuss with us offline, please feel free to email us again, baao@albemarle.org. And because I did not copy it before I got on the Zoom, I'm not going to drop the link to our registration into the chat, but everyone, please, I will send a follow-up email and I will include that. And as your project area launch gets closer, you will appreciate that email that you'll get from me that says, hey, go sign up. So hopefully everybody can take care of that. Mike, any closing words?
Thanks, Jason. You did a great job. And thanks for our friends from Lumen from being on today. And we'll be back next month. Really appreciate all the great questions and continue to stay informed about what's going on with this project. Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
And yes, yeah.
All right, and that concludes our meeting. So thank you again, everybody, for attending. All right, I've got Mike